The Karesh Armada stretched across the dark like a city of knives, 300 warships in perfect formation, their hulls glinting with the cold light of distant stars. At the center floated the Sovereign Talon, a carrier so massive it bent the fabric of space around it, a monument to conquest that had claimed 16 systems in as many cycles. Commander Vrex stood on the bridge, mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind. On the view screen, a speck approached. A single vessel, human-made by the readings, barely larger than an escape pod. "They send us this," he rasped, gesturing at the absurdly small craft drifting toward his fleet with no weapons hot, no shields raised, one tin can and a death wish. But the scout ship didn't fire, it didn't transmit surrender. It just glided forward, silent and steady, until it latched onto the Sovereign Talon's docking port like a tick finding skin, and then everything the Karesh thought they knew about war stopped making sense. The Karesh had rules, protocols. A hierarchy forged over millennia of grinding lesser species into compliance. When you faced an enemy fleet, you broadcast terms, you flexed your firepower, you made them see the futility before you vaporized them. Commander Vrex had done this dance 100 times. He expected defiance, maybe a last burst of bravado before the human ship broke apart under his guns. What he got instead was silence. The tiny craft, barely 10 meters long, coasted through the void like it had all the time in the world. "Sir," his tactical officer hissed, claws tapping frantically at the console. "The vessel is unarmed, no shields, no active propulsion, it's drifting." Vrex tilted his angular head. "A decoy? Negative, life signs detected, one occupant, human, female, estimated age." The officer paused, recalibrating. 20 standard cycles. "She's alone?" Laughter rippled through the bridge. A few of the younger officers slapped their exoskeletons in amusement. Vrex let them. Morale was important, and this was too absurd not to savor. "Hail her," he ordered, settling into his command throne. "I want to hear what kind of fool flies into an armada alone." The comms crackled, static, then a voice clear, unhurried, tinged with something that might have been boredom. "This is Lieutenant Mara Kincaid, United Earth Defense. I'm requesting permission to dock." Silence, then more laughter. Vrex leaned forward. "Permission to dock? Child, you're surrounded by 300 warships. You have no leverage, no fleet. You are a gnat before a storm." "Yeah, I noticed," Mara replied. "Still need to dock, though. Got a delivery." Vrex's mandibles spread wider. This was too good. A delivery for whom? "You, Commander Vrex, personally." That wiped the amusement off his face. He gestured sharply and his officers scrambled to trace the signal. No secondary ships, no hidden fleet, just her. "How do you know my name?" he demanded. "Your transponder's not exactly subtle," Mara said. "Look, I'm not here to waste time. You can let me dock or I can come in through the hull, your choice." Vrex's claws drummed on the armrest. Hubris, insanity, or something worse, a trick he hadn't seen yet. He made a decision. "Grant docking clearance to Bay 12, he ordered, "but seal the entire sector. I want 20 soldiers surrounding that craft the moment it touches down. If she so much as breathes wrong, turn her into vapor." His second-in-command clicked approval. "She'll regret her arrogance." "Perhaps," Vrex murmured, watching the scout ship glide toward the Sovereign Talon's underbelly. "Or perhaps we'll learn why humans are so fond of losing." The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thunk. The bay sealed. 20 Karesh warriors, each 2 meters tall and bristling with energy rifles, formed a semicircle around the tiny human vessel. Their armor hummed with kinetic shielding, their weapons charged. The hatch hissed open. Mara Kincaid stepped out. She was small. That was the first thing they noticed. Barely over 5 feet, wearing a dark gray flight suit with scuffed boots and a utility belt that looked more suited to fixing machinery than waging war. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her hands were empty. She looked around the bay, took in the 20 guns aimed at her chest, and sighed. "Well, this is dramatic." One of the soldiers chittered nervously. Another tightened his grip on his rifle. Mara ignored them. She walked forward, slow and deliberate, until she stood in the center of the kill zone. "I'm here to see Commander Vrex," she said. "He's expecting me." "You are a prisoner," the squad leader snarled, stepping forward. "You will be interrogated, then executed." Mara tilted her head. "Or I could just talk to him now and save everyone a lot of trouble." "Silence," she shrugged. "Suit yourself." That's when the lights went out, not just in the bay, across the entire Sovereign Talon. Emergency klaxons wailed. Red backup lights flickered on, casting everything in crimson. The Karesh soldiers spun, disoriented, shouting into their comms. Main power offline, someone screamed. Engineering reports a cascade failure impossible. The reactors are shielded. Mara stood perfectly still, hands in her pockets, watching them panic. The squad leader whirled on her. What did you do? Me. She raised an eyebrow. I'm just standing here. You sabotaged the ship, did I? Mara's voice was calm, almost amused. How would I do that? I just got here. The soldier lunged at her and froze mid-step. His entire squad did, not because of fear. Because something was wrong with their armor. The kinetic shields flickered, then died. Weapon systems went dark, targeting overlays vanished. Mara smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Here's the thing about your fleet, she said, stepping past the paralyzed soldiers like they were mannequins. You've got great firepower, impressive coordination. But your tech, it's all networked, everything talks to everything. One master command protocol linking every ship, every weapon, every life support system. She paused at the bay door, glancing back. That's a really bad idea. Then she walked into the corridor and the door sealed behind her. On the bridge, chaos. Vrex slammed his claws into the console as screen after screen went dark. Status, I want a full diagnostic now. Sir, we've lost control of the primary systems, his tactical officer stammered. Engineering's locked out, weapons offline, life support it's fluctuating, sir. Someone's rewriting the command codes in real time. Impossible, our encryption is… She's already in the network, another voice interrupted. The human, she's moving through Deck 7, unopposed. Vrex felt something he hadn't felt in years, uncertainty. Send every available unit, lock down the corridors. I want her contained. Sir, the blast doors won't respond, we can't. Then go manually, Vrex roared. She's one human, one, but as the minutes crawled by, reports flooded in. Squads sent to intercept her found empty hallways. Sensors showed her signature splitting, multiplying, vanishing. It was like chasing a ghost. Mara moved through the ship like she'd memorized the blueprints. She had 2 weeks of intercepted transmissions, decoded schematics, and one very illegal AI assistant named Sparrow running silent in her neural implant. 22 hostiles approaching from starboard junction, Sparrow whispered in her ear. Recommend bypass via maintenance shaft. Mara slipped into a crawl space, shimmying through ducts that reeked of ozone and alien sweat. Below, she heard boots thundering past. She waited, counted to 5, dropped back into the corridor. She wasn't here to fight. Fighting was inefficient. She was here to win. At the engineering core, 2 guards stood watch. Mara approached slowly, hands visible. Hey, they spun, rifles raised. I need you to step aside, she said. You are under arrest, one barked. Mara sighed. I really hoped you'd pick the easy way. She tapped her wrist. A burst of electromagnetic interference fried their neural links and both soldiers collapsed, unconscious but alive. She stepped over them, entered the core, and plugged a data spike into the central hub. Sparrow went to work. Full access acquired, lockdown protocols disabled, life support stable, weapon systems, mine. Mara smiled. Good, now let's make this official. She walked to the nearest comms panel and patched herself through to the bridge. When Vrex's snarling face appeared on the screen, she gave a little wave. Hi, Commander, told you I had a delivery. Vrex's mandibles quivered with rage. What have you done? I've taken your ship, Mara said simply. All of it. Weapons, navigation, life support, everything. Your fleet can't fire on me without your authorization codes, which I now control. You can't evacuate, you can't fight back. You're sitting in a 300-ship graveyard, and I'm the only one with the keys. You can't. I already did. Mara leaned back against the console. Here's what happens next. You surrender peacefully. Or I vent atmosphere on every deck except the bridge, and you get to watch your crew suffocate while you live just long enough to regret underestimating me. Silence. Vrex stared at her, disbelief warring with fury. You're bluffing, he hissed. Mara tapped a button. Somewhere on Deck 9, an airlock opened. Alarms shrieked. She closed it again. Want to test that theory? Vrex's claws slowly uncurled from the armrest. His second-in-command whispered urgently in his ear, but he waved them off. He looked at Mara, really looked at her, and saw something he hadn't expected. Not cruelty, not madness, just certainty. What do you want? He asked quietly. Your surrender, the release of every human colony you've occupied, and a signed treaty guaranteeing no further aggression against Earth or its allies. And if I refuse, Mara's expression didn't change. Then I disable your entire fleet and leave you drifting here until your supplies run out. No shots fired. No glorious battle, just a slow, humiliating end while the rest of the galaxy hears how the mighty Karesh Armada got beaten by one girl in a tin can. The bridge was silent. Vrex's officers stared at him, waiting. He clicked his mandibles once, twice, then he lowered his head. You have your surrender. Mara didn't relax, not yet. Surrender was one thing, compliance was another. She kept one hand near the data spike, ready to trigger failsafes if Vrex tried anything clever. Smart choice, she said. Now here's how this works. You're going to order your fleet to stand down, full weapons lockout, then you'll transmit the treaty terms to Earth Command for ratification. No tricks, no delays. Vrex's eyes, dark, multifaceted, unreadable, fixed on her. You've won this moment, human, but you cannot hold an entire armada alone. Eventually you will sleep, you will make a mistake. Maybe, Mara agreed, but I don't need forever, I just need long enough. She gestured at the screen. Make the call. Vrex hesitated. His second-in-command leaned in, whispering urgently. Mara couldn't hear the words, but she saw the body language, stiff, resistant. The commander was weighing his options, pride versus survival, legacy versus pragmatism. Sparrow's voice chimed softly in her ear. 3 encrypted signals detected from the bridge, possible contingency orders. Mara's jaw tightened. Commander, I strongly recommend you don't do what you're thinking of doing. Vrex froze. How? I'm monitoring your comms, all of them. You send a signal to your fleet captains telling them to prepare a counterstrike, and I'll know before your officers do. She paused. And then I'll turn off gravity on every deck and watch you float helplessly while I fly away in my tin can. A low hiss escaped Vrex's throat. Frustration, respect, maybe both. He tapped his console. This is Commander Vrex to all fleet elements. Cease hostilities, full weapons lockout, stand by for further orders. Across the view screen, 300 warships powered down their weapons arrays, gun ports sealed, missile bays retracted. The Armada, moments ago poised to glass planets, went silent. Mara exhaled slowly. 1 step down, 1,000 more to go. Good, she said. Now the treaty. Vrex's claws flexed. You ask for much, human. The colonies we hold are strategic assets. Releasing them weakens our position in 6 sectors. Then you shouldn't have taken them in the first place. Mara's voice was flat, unyielding. Those colonies are home to 60 million people, families, kids. They didn't ask to be part of your empire. War is not a matter of asking, then maybe you're fighting the wrong wars. She leaned forward. Look, I'm not here to debate philosophy. I'm here to bring my people home. You can either help me do that, or you can drift in the dark while I make it happen anyway. Your call. Vrex regarded her for a long moment, then slowly he began typing. The treaty terms appeared on her screen, comprehensive, legally binding, irrevocable. Mara scanned them. Release of all occupied colonies, reparations for damages, non-aggression pact lasting 50 cycles. It was more than she'd hoped for. Transmit it, she said. Vrex's claw hovered over the console. You realize this will be seen as weakness. My rivals will challenge my command. The Karesh do not forgive defeat easily. That's not my problem, isn't it? He tilted his head, an oddly human gesture. If I fall, the next commander may not be so reasonable. They may choose annihilation over negotiation. Mara considered that. It was a fair point. Removing Vrex might destabilize the Karesh leadership, leading to something worse. But keeping him in power meant trusting an enemy. She made a decision. Then don't fall, she said. Spin this however you need to. Tell your people I had a hidden fleet. Tell them Earth's tech is more advanced than they thought. Tell them you made a tactical retreat to fight another day. I don't care. But if you break this treaty, if you come for us again, I'll do this all over, and next time I won't be so polite. Vrex's mandibles clicked softly. Was that amusement? You are an unusual human, Lieutenant Kincaid. Thanks, I get that a lot. He transmitted the treaty. Across the void, Earth Command received the signal. Verification codes flashed. Legal teams scrambled. Within minutes, replies came flooding back. Shock, disbelief, cautious celebration. Sparrow whispered, confirmed, treaty ratified, all colonies flagged for immediate withdrawal. Mara felt a knot in her chest loosen. It was done. She'd actually done it, but she didn't let it show, not yet. Not while she was still standing in the belly of a hostile warship surrounded by soldiers who'd gladly tear her apart if given half a chance. All right, she said, keeping her voice steady. Now comes the fun part. I'm leaving. You're not going to stop me. You're not going to follow me, and when I'm safely back in Earth space, you'll get your systems back. Vrex's eyes narrowed. You still hold our fleet hostage. Insurance, Mara said. I don't trust you yet. Maybe I will in 50 cycles, but not today. She backed toward the door, keeping the comms panel in sight. Sparrow was already prepping the escape route, airlocks sealed, corridors clear, her scout ship prepped for launch. One more thing, Mara added. There's a data package in your system now, instructions for disabling the lockout remotely. 24 hours after I leave, it'll activate automatically. You'll get your fleet back. Until then, behave. Vrex stood, slowly, deliberately, and if we choose not to wait, Mara smiled. It was the same smile she'd worn in the docking bay, sharp, dangerous, completely unafraid. Then you'll find out exactly how creative humans can get when they're annoyed. She turned and walked out. The corridors were eerily quiet. No soldiers, no ambushes, just the hum of a ship holding its breath, waiting to see what happened next. Mara moved quickly, retracing her steps. Down through engineering, past the unconscious guards still breathing good, into the maintenance shafts. She dropped into the docking bay just as her scout ship's engines warmed up. The hatch was still open. She climbed inside, sealed it behind her, and strapped into the pilot's seat. Her hands flew across the controls, docking clamps released, thrusters fired. The tiny ship peeled away from the sovereign talon like a leaf caught in a breeze. On the bridge, Vrex watched her go. His officers clustered around him, demanding orders. Should they fire, pursue, reclaim control? He raised a claw for silence. Let her leave. Sir, we could. No, Vrex's voice was firm. She's earned her exit, and we've learned something valuable today. What, sir? Vrex's gaze lingered on the view screen where Mara's ship was already shrinking into the void. That size means nothing, that assumptions kill, and that humans, when cornered, do not break, they adapt. He turned away from the screen. Prepare the fleet for withdrawal, honor the treaty, and send a message to High Command. We underestimated them. We won't make that mistake again. In her cockpit, Mara watched the Armada recede. 300 ships, motionless and dark, waiting. Sparrow chimed softly. You're clear of their weapons range. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You just hijacked the most powerful fleet in the sector with nothing but code and nerve. Mara let out a shaky breath. Her hands were trembling, adrenaline crash. She'd been running on fumes and sheer stubbornness for the last 2 hours. Yeah, she muttered. Remind me never to do that again. Noted. Shall I plot a course home, please? The stars stretched into lines as her ship jumped to FTL. Behind her, the Karesh Armada faded into memory. Ahead, Earth waited, home, safety, a hot shower, and probably a mountain of paperwork. But for now, in the quiet hum of the cockpit, Mara let herself smile. She'd walked into an enemy fleet alone, taken their flagship without firing a shot, and walked out with a treaty that would save millions of lives. Not bad for a gnat. Earth Command didn't believe her at first. Mara sat in the debriefing room, a sterile white cube with a metal table and 3 very skeptical officers staring at her like she'd grown a second head. The treaty sat on the table between them, verified and legally binding, but they kept circling back to the same question. How? General Torrens asked for the 3rd time. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, with close-cropped gray hair and a reputation for eating junior officers alive. Lieutenant, you're telling us you infiltrated a Karesh carrier, took control of their entire fleet, and negotiated a full surrender alone. Yes, ma'am, Mara said, without firing a single shot. Correct, and they just let you walk out. Mara shrugged. They didn't have much choice. Torrens exchanged glances with the other officers. Captain Wei, a wiry man with nervous energy, leaned forward. The technical analysis confirms the treaty's legitimate. Karesh encryption, verified command codes. But the method, Lieutenant, our best hackers estimate it would take weeks to crack their network security, and that's with a full support team. I had Sparrow, Mara said, an AI assistant. Wei's tone was dubious. Standard issue for scout pilots, nothing classified, nothing powerful enough to. I modified it, Mara interrupted. Added some custom algorithms, pattern recognition, adaptive decryption, nothing illegal technically. Technically, Torrens repeated. Look, the point is, it worked. Mara met their eyes. 60 million people are coming home. The Karesh are backing off. We've got a treaty that buys us time to rebuild. Isn't that worth bending a few rules? Silence. The officers looked at each other. Then Torrens sighed. Lieutenant Kincaid, what you did was reckless, dangerous, and completely outside protocol. Mara's stomach sank. Ma'am. It was also brilliant. Torrens allowed herself a thin smile. You saved lives, possibly billions if this treaty holds. That doesn't excuse the unauthorized modifications to military AI, but we'll call it a gray area. Wei cleared his throat. There's another issue. The Karesh are honoring the treaty, but their internal politics are unstable. Intelligence suggests Commander Vrex is facing challenges to his authority. If he's overthrown, the new leadership might not feel bound by his agreements. Then we monitor the situation, Mara said. Keep diplomatic channels open. Make sure they know we're watching. And if they attack anyway, Mara's jaw tightened, then we remind them what happened to their fleet. Torrance tapped her stylus on the table. You're confident you could replicate this strategy? Not the same way, Mara admitted. They'll patch their security, change protocols, but humans are good at adapting. We'll find another angle. We, Torrance echoed. Not I, Mara blinked. Ma'am, you're being reassigned, Torrance said. Effective immediately. New posting, Strategic Operations Division. We're putting together a team, small, specialized, focused on asymmetric warfare. Situations where firepower isn't enough, we need people who think differently. Mara's eyes widened. You want me to train others? Train them, lead them, show them how to win wars without armies. Torrance stood, offering her hand. Interested? Mara shook it, trying to process. A week ago, she'd been flying routine patrols. Now she was being handed command of something that sounded half Black Ops, half think tank. Yes, ma'am, she said. Absolutely. Good. Dismissed. Mara left the debriefing room in a daze. The corridor outside was bustling, officers hurrying between meetings, techs hauling equipment, the organized chaos of a military base at wartime tempo. Except now, for the first time in months, there was something new in the air. Hope. She stopped at a window overlooking the hangar bay. Below, transports were prepping for colony evacuations. The first wave of freed civilians would arrive within days, families reunited, lives reclaimed. Sparrow chimed softly. Congratulations on the promotion, Lieutenant. Thanks, Mara murmured. Think I'm in over my head? Statistically, yes. Emotionally, no. You've demonstrated a remarkable capacity for succeeding despite impossible odds. I calculate a 73% chance you'll exceed expectations. Only 73? I'm accounting for bureaucracy. It tends to slow even the most competent individuals. Mara laughed. It felt good, like exhaling after holding her breath too long. Her comm buzzed, a message from her younger sister, Leah, back on Earth, just 3 words, you did it. Mara smiled. Leah had been stuck on a research outpost in the outer colonies when the Karesh invaded. She'd spent 6 months in hiding, sending coded messages that barely made it through. Now she was safe. They all were. Worth it, Mara typed back. See you soon. She pocketed the comm and headed for the mess hall. She hadn't eaten in 12 hours, and her body was loudly reminding her of that fact. The hall was crowded, but she found a corner table and collapsed into it with a tray of something vaguely resembling lasagna. Halfway through her meal, someone sat down across from her, Captain Wei. He looked less nervous now, more curious. Mind if I join you? Free station, Mara said around a mouthful of pasta. Wei smiled faintly. I wanted to ask off the record, how did you stay calm, walking into that fleet, knowing one wrong move meant instant death? Most people would have cracked. Mara swallowed, thought about it. I didn't feel calm, she admitted. I was terrified, but I kept thinking about everyone counting on me, the colonists, my sister. If I screwed up, they'd never get home, so I just kept moving, one step at a time. Didn't let myself think about the whole picture, just the next thing I needed to do. Wei nodded slowly. That's good advice. You thinking of joining the new unit? Mara asked. Maybe, if they'll have me. He hesitated. You really think this can work? Small teams taking on impossible missions. Mara glanced around the mess hall. Young pilots, engineers, tacticians, all of them tired, scared, but still showing up every day. Still fighting. Yeah, she said. I do, because that's what humans are good at, finding the crack in the armor. Turning weaknesses into strengths, being underestimated, and then proving everyone wrong. Wei grinned. Sounds like a motto. Might be. They finished their meal in companionable silence. When Wei left, Mara sat alone for a while longer, watching the controlled chaos of the base swirl around her. She'd started this mission expecting to die. Now she was being handed a future. It felt strange, hopeful, fragile, but real. Sparrow chimed. Incoming transmission, Commander Vrex. Mara froze. What? He's requesting a direct line. Audio only. Shall I patch him through? Mara's heart kicked into overdrive. Why was Vrex contacting her? Was the treaty falling apart already? She glanced around the mess hall, too public. She grabbed her tray, dumped it, and headed for a private comms booth. "Patch him through," she said, sealing the door. The line crackled. Vrex's voice came through, low and measured. "Lieutenant Kincaid?" "Commander," Mara said carefully. "This is unexpected." "I imagine so." A pause. "I wanted to inform you that the Karesh High Command has reviewed my report. They are displeased." Mara's stomach tightened. "Are they breaking the treaty?" "No. But they are questioning my leadership. There are calls for my removal, accusations of cowardice." "I'm sorry to hear that," Mara said, and meant it. Vrex was a conqueror, yes, but he'd chosen survival over pride. That took guts. "I am not seeking sympathy," Vrex continued. "I am informing you because what happens next will affect both our peoples. If I am deposed, my successor will likely be more aggressive, more desperate to prove strength. The treaty will hold, but the peace may not." Mara closed her eyes. "What do you need?" "Nothing. This is my battle to fight, but I thought you should know your victory has consequences, not all of them predictable." "Victories always do," Mara said quietly. "That doesn't make them less necessary." "Perhaps." Vrex's tone shifted, almost thoughtful. "You are an unusual human, Lieutenant. You could have killed me, humiliated me. Instead, you gave me a chance to preserve my honor." "Why?" Mara leaned back against the booth wall. "Because dead enemies just make more enemies. But if you survive, if you keep the treaty, maybe someday we're not enemies at all." Silence, then a naive hope. "Maybe, but hope's kind of our thing." Vrex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I will remember that. Farewell, Lieutenant. May we not meet again on a battlefield." "Agreed." The line went dead. Mara sat in the booth for a long time, staring at the blank screen. Vrex was right. Her actions had ripples she couldn't control. But that was always the case. You did what you could, made the best call with the information you had, and hoped it was enough. She stood, straightened her uniform, and walked out. There was work to do. 3 weeks later, Mara stood in front of her new team. 12 people, handpicked by General Torrens. Hackers, linguists, combat specialists, engineers, all of them brilliant, all of them unconventional. They sat around a conference table in a nondescript building on the edge of the base, eyeing her with varying degrees of skepticism. "All right," Mara said, palms flat on the table. "Let's get one thing straight. I didn't ask to lead this team. I didn't even know asymmetric warfare was a career path until a month ago. But apparently I did something right, so here we are." Silence. A wiry man in the back, Corporal Jansen, former Signals Intelligence, raised his hand. "Permission to speak, Lieutenant?" "Granted." "What exactly are we supposed to be doing?" The briefing was vague. Mara smiled faintly. "That's because nobody really knows yet. Our job is to figure it out. We're the people who get called when traditional tactics won't work. Hostage situations in zero-G. Diplomatic crises with species we don't understand. Tech-based threats like the Karesh fleet. Basically, if it's weird and dangerous, it's ours." A woman with cybernetic implants, Sergeant Kova, systems specialist, leaned forward. "So we're troubleshooters. More like problem solvers," Mara said. "We analyze, adapt, execute. No two missions will look the same." "Sounds chaotic," someone muttered. "It will be," Mara agreed. "But chaos is where we thrive. The enemy expects tanks and battleships. We give them code and creativity. They expect brute force. We give them precision. We're not trying to overpower anyone. We're trying to outsmart them." Captain Wei, now officially assigned as her second-in-command, spoke up. "How do we train for that? Tactics are predictable. This isn't." Mara nodded. "Good question. We start with scenarios. I've been working with Sparrow to design simulations, problems with no obvious solutions. We'll run them, fail them, argue about them, and figure out what works. Then we'll refine." She tapped the table, and a holographic display flickered to life. "Here's the first one. A human freighter is seized by pirates in neutral space. They're holding 200 civilians hostage, demanding ransom. Standard military response would be a boarding action, high casualties on both sides. Our job, get everyone out alive without paying a credit." The team stared at the scenario. Jansen frowned. "How much time do we have?" 48 hours before the pirates start executing hostages. Kova tapped her chin. "What's the freighter's cargo?" "Medical supplies, food, nothing explosive or valuable enough to trade." "Communications?" Wei asked. "The pirates are jamming standard channels. We can intercept some chatter, but it's encrypted." The team fell silent, thinking. Mara watched them. This was the test, not the scenario itself, but how they approached it. Did they panic, default to violence, or did they start asking the right questions? Finally, a quiet voice spoke up. Lieutenant Mara Chen, a linguist specializing in non-human languages. What species are the pirates? Mara smiled. Good question. They're Vec scavengers, opportunistic but not suicidal. They want the ransom, but they'll bolt if things get too dangerous. Chen nodded. Then we make it dangerous, not by attacking, by making them think someone else is about to. Jansen caught on. A false signal. Make them believe a Karesh patrol is inbound. They'd run rather than risk a fight. But the Karesh don't patrol neutral space, Wei countered. They don't usually, Kova said slowly. But if we fake a distress beacon, forge some transponder codes, make it look like a Karesh ship is responding to a civilian SOS. The pirates see a warship on their sensors, panic, and abandon the freighter, Mara finished, leaving the hostages unharmed. The team looked at each other, then at Mara. Did we just solve it? Jansen asked. Maybe, Mara said. Now you have to prove it. Kova, you're on signal fabrication. Chen, work out what a Karesh distress protocol sounds like. Jansen, I need intercept data on Vec communication patterns. How quickly do they react to threats? Wei, coordinate logistics. If this works in the sim, we'll know it's viable. The team scattered, already arguing over details. Mara watched them go, feeling something settle in her chest. This could work. They just needed time, practice, and a willingness to fail spectacularly in a safe environment before trying it in the field. Over the next few days, the simulation played out. The fake Karesh signal worked mostly. The pirates bolted, but not before rigging a secondary trap that nearly killed half the hostages. The team regrouped, adjusted, ran it again. This time they anticipated the trap, disabled it remotely, got everyone out clean. Success! General Torrens observed the final run from the control room, arms crossed. When it was over, she pulled Mara aside. Impressive, they're learning fast. They're motivated, Mara said. Nobody wants to be the reason a mission fails in the real world. How do you feel about your first command? Mara considered. Terrified, excited, both. Torrens smiled. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. She paused. There's something you should know. Intelligence just flagged a situation in the Tau Ceti system. Colony outpost. Communications went dark 3 days ago. Could be equipment failure. Could be something worse. Mara's pulse quickened. You're sending us? I'm giving you the option. It's not a combat deployment, more of a reconnaissance, but if you think your team's ready. Mara thought about the 12 people in the next room. Brilliant, yes, but untested in the field. Was she ready to risk their lives on her judgment? She thought about the freighter simulation, the way they'd adapted, collaborated, found a solution where none seemed to exist. We're ready, she said. Torrens nodded. Transport leaves in 6 hours. Briefing packets already uploaded to your system. Good luck, Lieutenant. Mara gathered her team. She explained the mission, straightforward on paper, potentially deadly in practice. They'd fly to Tau Ceti, assess the situation, and report back. No combat unless absolutely necessary. No heroics. Questions? Mara asked. Wei raised his hand. What's our contingency if we find hostiles? We adapt, Mara said. Same as always. We gather intel, identify weaknesses, exploit them. If we can't win, we retreat and call for backup. No shame in living to fight another day. Kova grinned. Sounds like my kind of mission. The transport was a mid-sized frigate, fast and lightly armed. They boarded in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Mara strapped into the command seat, watching the stars shift as they entered FTL. Sparrow chimed softly. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. Shall I run diagnostics, please? While the AI worked, Mara reviewed the briefing. Tau Ceti Outpost was a research station, population 80. Mostly scientists studying exoplanet atmospheres. Last transmission had been routine daily check-in, no distress signals. Then, nothing. Equipment failure was plausible. Solar flares could disrupt communications, but Mara's instincts prickled. Something felt off. They dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. The outpost appeared on sensors intact, lights on, no obvious damage, but still silent. Hail them, Mara ordered. Jansen tried, no response. Life signs? Wei asked. Kova scanned. Faint, consistent with 80 individuals, but they're clustered in one section, the central hub. Mara frowned. Why would everyone be in one place? Maybe they're sheltering, Chen suggested. Meteor storm, radiation leak, or they're being held there, Mara said quietly. The team exchanged uneasy glances. All right, Mara said, we're going in, but carefully. Kova, can you access their security feeds remotely? Working on it. Kova's fingers flew across her console. Got it. Patching through. The main screen flickered. Grainy footage from the outpost's interior appeared. The central hub was packed with people, scientists, technicians, all sitting on the floor with their hands visible. And standing over them, weapons raised, were figures in dark armor. Not Karesh, not Vec, something else. Unknown species, Chen murmured. Bipedal, synthetic armor, military-grade weapons. Mercenaries, Wei said. But why take a research outpost? There's nothing valuable here. Maybe there is, Mara said, and we just don't know it yet. She leaned forward. Kova, can you get audio? A crackle, then voices harsh, guttural, speaking a language Mara didn't recognize. Chen listened intently, her brow furrowed. After a moment, she shook her head. It's not in the database, but the cadence suggests, demands, they want something from the scientists. Data, Jansen guessed. Research, possibly. Mara tapped her console. Sparrow, analyze the armor, any identifying marks, negative, design is modular. Common to several mercenary groups, no unique identifiers. Mara exhaled, unknowns upon unknowns, but that was the job. All right, she said. Here's the plan. We dock quietly. Kova, you'll hack their comms and find out what they're after. Jansen, monitor their movements. Wei, prep a rapid extraction route in case we need to pull the hostages out fast. Chen, keep analyzing their language. Every word helps. I'll go in and make contact. Wei blinked. Alone, one person's less threatening than a squad, Mara said. If they see me as a negotiator, not a threat, maybe we can talk this out. And if they shoot you, Mara smiled grimly, then you get creative. She stood, grabbed a breather mask and a small comm unit and headed for the airlock. Behind her, the team scrambled to execute the plan. She didn't look back, couldn't afford to second-guess now. The docking was smooth. The outpost's outer hull was cold, dark. Mara cycled through the airlock and stepped into a dim corridor. Emergency lights cast everything in pale blue. She moved quietly, following the sound of voices toward the central hub. The closer she got, the more her heart hammered. One wrong move and this turned into a bloodbath. She reached the hub entrance, took a breath, stepped through. 20 armed figures turned to stare at her. The hostages gasped, and Mara, standing in the center of the room with her hands raised and a reckless smile on her face, said the only thing that came to mind. Hi, I'm here to negotiate. The mercenaries didn't shoot. That was a good start. Mara kept her hands high, her posture non-threatening. The leader, identifiable by the extra armor plating and the scar across his helmet visor, stepped forward. He was tall, easily 7 feet, with a weapon that looked like it could punch through a bulkhead. Who are you? He demanded in heavily accented standard. Lieutenant Mara Kincaid, United Earth Defense, Mara said evenly. I'm here to resolve this peacefully. The leader barked a laugh. One human, no weapons. You think you can stop us? I think I can help you get what you want without killing anyone, Mara said. That's better than the alternative. He tilted his head, considering, then gestured to one of the hostages, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and terrified eyes. Tell her what we want. The woman swallowed. They're after Dr. Halley's research, atmospheric data from an uncharted exoplanet. They think it's valuable. Mara glanced at the hostages. Is it? A thin man in the back, Dr. Halley's, presumably shook his head. It's preliminary data, spectral analysis, nothing weaponizable. I don't understand why they... Because someone's paying for it, Mara interrupted, looking at the leader. Let me guess, you're contractors. Someone hired you to retrieve specific research. You don't care what it is, just that you deliver. The leader's silence was confirmation enough. Mara nodded slowly. All right, here's the deal. You get the data, the hostages go free, you leave quietly, everyone walks away. That was always the plan, the leader said, but Dr. Halley's is refusing to hand it over. Mara looked at Halley's. Why? Because I don't know what they'll do with it. Halley's voice cracked. What if it's used to harm people, to poison atmospheres, to... It won't be, Mara said gently, because we're going to make sure of that. She turned back to the leader. Give me 5 minutes to talk to him, alone. If I can't convince him, you can take the data by force, but if I can, you get what you need without the mess. Fair, the leader considered, then nodded. 5 minutes. Mara crossed to Halley's, crouching so they were at eye level. Doctor, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Halley's eyes were wet. I don't even know you. I know, but I'm asking anyway. She lowered her voice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give them the data. But before you do, I'm going to have my team encrypt a tracer into the file. Whoever hired these mercenaries will know exactly where the data goes, and if they try to use it for harm, we'll stop them. Halley's blinked. You can do that? We can. Mara glanced at her wrist comm. Kova, you copy? Loud and clear, Kova's voice crackled. Already prepping the tracer, invisible to standard scans, I'll have it ready in 2 minutes. Mara looked back at Hallie's. You'll be saving lives. Yours, theirs, and everyone's who might have gotten hurt if this turned violent. Please. Hallie's hesitated, then slowly he nodded. Mara stood, addressing the leader. We have a deal. Dr. Hallie's will transfer the data, but it's going to take a few minutes to compile. Your patience buys you a clean exit. The leader grunted. 3 minutes, not a second more. Kova's voice whispered in Mara's ear. Tracers ready, uploading to Hallie's terminal now. Hallie's moved to a nearby console, his hands shaking as he initiated the transfer. The mercenaries watched, weapons still raised, the hostages barely breathed. Mara stood in the center of the room, acutely aware that one wrong move, one miscalculation could end in catastrophe. But she forced herself to breathe, to project calm. The transfer completed. Hallie's stepped back. It's done. The leader approached, snatching the data chip from the console. He examined it briefly, then nodded to his team. We leave. Now. They filed out, weapons lowered but still ready. Mara didn't move until the last one disappeared into the corridor. Then she exhaled, her legs nearly giving out. The hostages erupted in relieved sobs. Hallie's slumped against the console, and Mara tapped her comm. Wei, they're leaving. Make sure they actually get on their ship and go. On it, Wei replied. Kova's tracking the data chip. Looks like it's headed for a black market broker in the Epsilon sector. We'll deal with that later, Mara said. Right now, let's get these people to safety. The extraction went smoothly. The hostages boarded the transport, shaken but unharmed. Dr. Hallie's approached Mara as they prepared to depart. Thank you, he said quietly. I thought I was going to die. You did the right thing, Mara said, and now we'll make sure your research doesn't fall into the wrong hands. He managed a weak smile. You're different from most soldiers. I get that a lot. Back on the transport, the team gathered in the briefing room. Mara debriefed them, highlighting what went right, the tracer, the negotiation, and what could have gone wrong, a dozen things. They listened, asked questions, took notes. When it was over, Wei spoke up. That was our first real mission. We didn't fire a shot and everyone came home. Kova grinned, not bad for a bunch of misfits. Mara smiled, not bad at all. General Torrens's face appeared on the comms screen. Lieutenant, well done. The hostages are being debriefed and intelligence is already tracking that data chip. If it leads to the buyer, we may be able to shut down an entire smuggling network. That was the plan, ma'am, Mara said. Torrens nodded. You're learning fast, all of you. I'm authorizing a 72-hour stand-down, rest, recharge, then we'll discuss your next assignment. The screen went dark, the team exchanged glances then slowly dispersed, some headed for quarters, others to the mess hall. Wei lingered. Question, he said, how did you know they'd take the deal? They had all the leverage. Mara leaned against the table. Because leverage only matters if you're willing to use it. Those mercenaries weren't ideologues, they were professionals. Professionals want clean jobs, in, out, paid, no complications. Violence is messy, expensive. I gave them an easier path. And if they'd chosen violence anyway, then Kova would have triggered the station's fire suppression system, flooding the hub with foam. Jansen would have cut their comms, and you would have led the hostages out through the maintenance tunnels while I kept them distracted. Mara smiled faintly. I had a plan B, I just hoped I wouldn't need it. Wei shook his head, almost amused. You think 3 steps ahead. I try to, doesn't always work. She straightened. But that's the job, right? Anticipate, adapt. And hope you're smart enough to stay 1 step ahead of disaster. Wei left and Mara was alone. She pulled up the mission report, started typing. Objective achieved, hostages rescued, 0 casualties, but her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Something nagged at her. The mercenaries had been too calm. Too professional, and the research they'd stolen, atmospheric data, seemed innocuous. Why would someone pay that much for it? Sparrow chimed. The data chip's trajectory has been updated. It's headed for Epsilon 7, a known black market hub. ETA, 6 hours. Can we intercept? Mara asked. Not without authorization and a faster ship, but we can observe. I've tapped into local surveillance networks. When the exchange happens, we'll see it. Mara nodded. Do it, and flag any unusual activity. I want to know who's buying. Understood. She finished the report, sent it off, and headed for her quarters. The room was small, bunk, desk, locker, but it was hers. She collapsed onto the bed, suddenly exhausted. For a moment, she let herself feel it. the weight of command, the lives depending on her decisions. The thin line between success and catastrophe, then she pushed it aside. Dwelling didn't help, action did. She closed her eyes, sleep came quickly. 6 hours later, Sparrow woke her. Exchange in progress, Epsilon 7, visual feed active. Mara bolted upright, pulling the monitor close. The screen showed a dingy warehouse, poorly lit. The mercenary leader handed the data chip to a cloaked figure, credits transferred. The deal was done. But as the figure turned to leave, its hood slipped. Mara's breath caught. Not human, not Karesh, not Vec. Something else, sleek reptilian features, eyes like molten gold, a species she'd never seen before. Sparrow ran the image through databases. No match, unidentified species. This is concerning. Understatement, Mara muttered. She tapped her comm. Wei, Kova, Chen, get to the briefing room, now. They assembled within minutes, groggy but alert. Mara displayed the feed. Who is that? Kova asked. Unknown, Mara said, which means we've got a new player, and if they're buying atmospheric data, they're planning something. Chen leaned forward, studying the figure's movements. Body language suggests confidence, authority. This isn't a middleman, this is someone important. Then we need to find out who they are, Mara said, and what they want with that data. Jansen pulled up star charts, Epsilon 7's in neutral space. We'd need diplomatic clearance to operate there legally. Or we go off book, Kova suggested. No, Mara's voice was firm. We do this by the rules. I'll contact General Torrens. If this is a new threat, command needs to know. She sent the report. Within an hour, Torrens responded, audio only, her tone clipped. Lieutenant, you've uncovered something significant. Intelligence confirms the species in that footage isn't in any known database. We're treating this as a potential first contact scenario. First contact with someone buying black market research, Mara said. That's not a great start. Agreed. Which is why I'm authorizing your team to investigate. Quietly, no official Earth presence. If this species is hostile, we don't want to provoke them prematurely. Gather intel, assess their intentions, and report back. Understood, ma'am. The line went dead. Mara looked at her team. You heard the general. We're going to Epsilon 7. The journey took 2 days. They used a civilian transport, posing as independent traders. Epsilon 7 was a sprawling station, half market, half criminal haven, perfect for blending in. They docked without incident. Mara split the team. Kova and Jansen would track the data chip's signal. Chen would monitor local chatter for mentions of the unknown species, and Wei would stay with the ship as backup. Mara took Chen and moved through the crowded market. Alien vendors hawked everything from spices to weaponry. The air smelled like oil and exotic fruits. It was chaotic, loud, and perfect for staying invisible. Chen's earpiece crackled. Got something. A bartender 2 sectors over mentioned the architects. Said they're new, paying well for specific items. Architects, Mara repeated. That's what they're calling themselves. Seems like it. They found the bar a dim, smoky place filled with shady characters. Mara approached the bartender, a 4-armed alien with too many eyes. I heard you know about the architects. The bartender's eyes swiveled toward her. Maybe, depends who's asking. Mara slid credits across the counter. Someone interested in doing business. The bartender pocketed the money. They're new, arrived a month ago, buying up research, terraforming tech, atmospheric data, bioengineering specs. No one knows where they're from, but they pay very well. Where can I find them? You don't, they find you. The bartender leaned closer. Word of advice, don't go looking. People who ask too many questions about the architects tend to disappear. Mara thanked him and left. Outside, she regrouped with Chen. We need more. Kova, status. Kova's voice crackled through the comm. Data chip's signal stopped moving. It's in a warehouse on the lower levels, heavily guarded. Can we get in? Not easily, but I can loop their security feeds. Give you a 10-minute window. Do it. Mara turned to Chen. We're going in. Wei, prep for a fast exit. If this goes sideways, we'll need to leave immediately. They descended into the station's bowels. The air grew colder, the lighting sparser. The warehouse loomed ahead, industrial, nondescript. 2 guards flanked the entrance. Kova's voice, feeds looped, you're clear. Mara and Chen slipped past the guards, entering the warehouse. Inside, crates were stacked high, and in the center, a makeshift lab, equipment analyzing the stolen data. The reptilian figure from the footage stood over a console, watching readouts scroll past. Mara ducked behind a crate, signaling Chen to stay low. Lieutenant, Sparrow whispered, that data, they're using it to identify habitable planets, specifically ones with atmospheres similar to Earth's. Mara's blood ran cold. Why? Unknown, but the analysis suggests colonization potential. She risked a glance at the figure. It tapped the console and a holographic star map appeared, dozens of systems highlighted, including one Mara recognized, Earth. She pulled back, heart racing. This wasn't just black market dealing, this was reconnaissance. The architects were scouting worlds to colonize or conquer. We need to go, she whispered to Chen. Now. They retreated, slipping out the way they came. The guards never noticed. Back at the ship, Mara transmitted everything to General Torrens. The response was immediate. Return to base, immediately. We're convening an emergency session with the Council. If the architects are targeting Earth, we need to prepare. The flight home was tense. Mara stared at the star map, replaying the data in her mind. A new species, advanced, expansionist, and now aware of humanity. When they docked, Torrens was waiting. Your intel's been confirmed by other sources. The architects are real. And they're not alone. There are reports of similar activity in 3 other sectors. What's the plan? Mara asked. For now, vigilance. We'll increase patrols, monitor trade routes, and your team will be our eyes and ears, tracking architect movements, gathering intelligence, preparing countermeasures. Mara nodded. We're ready. Torrens smiled faintly. I believe you are. In the weeks that followed, the team ran mission after mission. They intercepted smuggled tech, disrupted black market networks, and slowly, piece by piece, built a profile of the architects. They were builders, yes, but also conquerors. They didn't destroy worlds, they reshaped them. Turned them into mirrors of their own home, regardless of who already lived there. And Earth, with its abundant water and breathable atmosphere, was high on their list. But humanity had something the architects didn't expect. People like Mara, like her team, who saw impossible odds and refused to accept defeat. One evening, after a particularly exhausting briefing, Mara stood on the observation deck, watching stars drift past. Leah's latest message played in her ear, updates from the colony, now thriving again. Rebuilding, Sparrow chimed. You look contemplative. Just thinking, Mara said. We stopped the Karesh, now the architects. How many more threats are out there? Statistically many, but you've demonstrated a consistent ability to adapt. I calculate a favorable long-term survival rate for humanity, assuming continued innovation. Mara smiled. Thanks, Sparrow. You're welcome. Also, Corporal Jansen is requesting your presence in the rec room, something about mandatory team bonding. Mara laughed. Tell him I'll be there. She took one last look at the stars. Out there, threats loomed. Unknowns waited, but so did allies, discoveries, hope. And as long as humans kept adapting, kept finding ways to turn size into strength and fear into resolve, they'd survive, one impossible mission at a time. A year later, the architects made formal contact. Not through violence, but through diplomacy, curious about the species that had quietly disrupted their operations across 6 sectors. Mara was part of the delegation. When the architect ambassador asked how such a small, fragile species had thwarted their plans, she smiled. We're good at being underestimated, she said. And even better at proving people wrong. The treaty negotiations took months, but in the end, the architects agreed to avoid human-occupied space, not out of fear but respect. And Mara, promoted to commander, leading a division dedicated to asymmetric solutions, continued her work, training new teams, solving impossible problems. Reminding the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't firepower, it was ingenuity, and a stubborn refusal to give up.